Transaction Capital recently came out with very strong sets of results for the year to end September, with headline earnings up per share up 20%. Now, the bulk of this business focuses on the financing of small businesses, mainly in the minibus taxi industry. But in studio with me to discuss the outlook for Transaction Capital is trader and stockbroker Petri Redelinghuys. Petri, thanks so much for coming through. So Transaction Capital, they've done phenomenally well. What have they been able to do? What are they getting right that they've been having such a really, really good performance?
Well, they're doing quite a few things right. One of the things they did is they sold some of their higher risk assets, some of the sort of non-asset backed lending type thing, short-term loans business that they had. They sold that at seemingly a very good time. And they've gathered a whole bunch of capital that they've now redeployed or are starting to redeploy into their two business units which remain, being the SA Taxi business as well as the MBD business. So they've got two very, very well-positioned businesses. I mean, on the one side, you've got SA Taxi that provides finance to the taxi business and is really classified as developmental finance, where it's not a short-term loan, it's not an asset-backed loan. It's actually starting a small business. It's very unique the way that they do that. And then also on the other side of the business, they have this MBD business where they do debt collecting, both as principal or as agent, which that basically means is either they buy the debt from the company and they take it on as their own and they collect on that, or they work as an agent and they charge a commission on the debt that they collect. And they do work with people like Capitec and ABSA and the big banks essentially, as well as the bigger sort of retailers that need debt collecting. So they've got two really robust businesses, I think, and they do a lot of things right. They focus very much on return on equity. They've got a very low risk, sort of patient way of doing things. They're not trying to shoot the lights out. They're just trying to make sure that what they do right.
I'm just asking, minibus taxis, and you think about that industry. A little risky, no?
Yeah, everybody thinks that they're these, and I mean, it's a bit like the Wild West out there, let's face it. But, it's not as, the way that they do it is very unique. So you go to, before you can get finance from SA Taxi, you need to be a member of a taxi association, and you need to have an approved route, approved by government, that you can drive. When you have that, you obviously take your financial statements and your proof of income and all your figure documents with you to them, and you say, listen guys, I've got a route approved, I'm a member of a taxi association, and they can then run, they've got about 25,000 taxis on the roads that they've had for a very long period of time, and they've got a telematic systems that they track all their taxis, so they can sit back and work out the profitability on the route that you are approved to drive. And then based on how many passengers on average you can drive in a day and how much they can estimate you can make, they'll then see, can they pay for the insurance? Can they pay for the installment? Can they do this? Can they pay for a driver? Is there going to be profit? Is this going to be a little business that's going to work? And if all the answers to that is yes and satisfactory to them, then they'll finance you. So they're not just basing the finance on affordability. Yes, they are, but also on viability of the small little business, essentially, that they're funding, which is a very unique way of doing it. And from that perspective, you now can also, they do a lot of vertical integration. They're busy sort of buying up their entire supply chain. So you can now buy your taxi directly from them, finance it with them, insure it with them, service it with them. If it needs refurbishing, they'll do that as well. If you crash it, they're busy building one of South Africa's largest panel beating facilities, focusing specifically on the two types of taxis that they supply into the market. So it's a very unique business, and they currently have about 25,000 taxis, as I mentioned, on the roads, in an industry that has 200,000 taxis on the roads, most of which are busy getting older. So these things are going to have to be replaced at some point, and we're better to get it from SA Taxi, right?
So what's the outlook looking like? I'm just thinking about what October was it Eco-Mobility Month, to try to get all these, get people walking, grouping or pulling people. Will this have an impact at all? The way that we are moving as society?
I think that as the economy develops in South Africa, more and more people will move out from abject poverty into the sort of working class. And most of the people in South Africa, the vast majority of people in South Africa, get to work and back every day via a taxi, as well as to school and back, or to an educational facility and back via a taxi. 70% of South African transport happens in taxis. So this is an industry that is not going anywhere. I
So
think
we shouldn't be worried with Rea
the
Vaya.
impact of Rea Vaya and the Gautrain and that kind of stuff, the impact that that's had is maybe 0.5% on the number of people that travel on taxis. Taxis are here to stay. And I think that Transaction Capital is positioned in such a way to capitalize off of something that everybody needs in a very unique way. And as an outlook, there's a couple of things that they're busy with. One of which was something that I'm quite excited about. Is it might take them a year or so to get this done, but they're busy developing an app that's looking to connect the user and the taxi operator in an Uber type fashion.
So Uber taxi.
You can have you'll be on a route, for example, and you can say, okay, I'm on this route. The next taxi is this far away. It is got 6 out of 12 seats taken.
Nice.
So that type of technology is the type of stuff that they're bringing to market. If something like that takes off, we don't know if it's going to, but if something like that takes off, I think it will entice a lot of people who are currently afraid of using taxis to start using taxis.
Certainly, lovely things to look forward there. Petri, thank you so much. That was Petri Redelinghuys. He's a trader and stockbroker. Up next, let's take a look at this week's cover story.